A single message could travel 3,000 miles in just 7 days, crossing deserts, mountains, and hostile territories with pinpoint accuracy. And this happened 2,500 years ago, when most of the world still relied on smoke signals and drums. In the heart of ancient Persia, around 550 before Christ, a revolutionary intelligence network was born that would make modern spy agencies look primitive. This wasn't just about gathering information. It was about controlling the largest empire the world had ever seen through an intricate web of spies, messengers, and secret agents that operated across 3 continents. The Persian Empire stretched from India to Greece, from Egypt to Central Asia, encompassing over 44 million square miles and 50 million people speaking dozens of languages. How did they manage to keep such a vast territory under control? How did they prevent rebellions before they started? How did they know what their enemies were planning before their enemies knew it themselves? The answer lies in what historians now recognize as the world's first organized intelligence service, a system so sophisticated that its principles still influence modern espionage. They called themselves the eyes and ears of the king, and their reach extended into every corner of the known world. But this story begins not with grand strategies or royal decrees, but with a young prince named Cyrus who understood something that would change the course of history. Information is the ultimate weapon. When Cyrus the Great founded the Persian Empire, he didn't just conquer territories. He conquered the very concept of knowledge itself, turning it into a tool of absolute power. The network they created was so effective that it could predict revolts months in advance, intercept enemy communications, and manipulate the politics of distant kingdoms without anyone realizing Persian influence was at play. They developed codes that wouldn't be broken for centuries, created fake identities so convincing that spies lived entire lifetimes in foreign courts, and established a communication system that could relay intelligence faster than any army could march. To understand how they achieved this incredible feat, we must journey back to the windswept plateaus of ancient Persia, where a revolution in intelligence gathering was about to reshape the ancient world forever. The year was 559 before Christ, and the world was about to witness the rise of the most sophisticated intelligence operation in human history. Cyrus II of Persia, later known as Cyrus the Great, had just inherited the throne of a small kingdom called Anshan, nestled in the rugged mountains of what is now southern Iran. But Cyrus possessed something that set him apart from every other ruler of his time. He understood that empires weren't built just with swords and shields, but with secrets and information. The landscape of the ancient world was fragmented into countless kingdoms, city-states, and tribal confederations, each jealously guarding their territories and plotting against their neighbors. Communication was slow, unreliable, and often intercepted. Most rulers relied on crude intelligence gathering, captured prisoners, merchant gossip, or the occasional spy who might take months to return with outdated information. But Cyrus envisioned something revolutionary: a permanent, professional network of information gatherers who could provide real-time intelligence across vast distances. The foundation of this system began with an ancient Persian institution called the Royal Road. But this wasn't just any road. It was a carefully engineered communications superhighway that stretched over 1,600 miles from the Persian capital of Persepolis to the Aegean coast of modern-day Turkey. Every 14 miles along this road, Cyrus established relay stations staffed with fresh horses and professional messengers known as chapar. These weren't ordinary postal workers. They were elite riders trained in combat, navigation, and most importantly, the art of keeping secrets. The Greek historian Herodotus, writing a century later, would marvel at their dedication. Nothing mortal travels so fast as these Persian messengers. Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor darkness of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. This description would later inspire the unofficial motto of the United States Postal Service, but its original context was far more sinister. These messengers were carrying state secrets, military plans, and intelligence reports that could determine the fate of nations. But the true genius of the Persian intelligence system wasn't just in its speed, it was in its secrecy and sophistication. Cyrus established what he called the eyes and ears of the king, a network of spies and informants that operated at every level of society. Unlike the amateur spies of other kingdoms, these agents were professionals, trained in specialized schools that taught everything from cryptography to assassination. They learned to blend into local populations, adopt convincing cover identities, and extract information without their targets ever suspecting they were being watched. The network operated on multiple levels of security and specialization. At the lowest level were the listeners, tavern keepers, merchants, and ordinary citizens who had been recruited or coerced into reporting unusual activities or conversations to regional coordinators. Above them were the watchers, professional agents embedded in foreign courts, military units, and religious institutions. These operatives often spent years, sometimes decades, building their cover identities and working their way into positions of trust and influence. At the highest level were the king's immortals, not to be confused with the famous Persian military unit of the same name, but rather an elite cadre of master spies who reported directly to the Persian court. These individuals were so trusted and so skilled that they were granted extraordinary authority to act in the king's name, forge documents, eliminate threats, and even negotiate treaties on behalf of the empire. The Persian intelligence system also pioneered the use of systematic cryptography for state communications. They developed complex codes based on ancient Persian symbols that could be hidden within seemingly innocent merchant contracts, religious texts, or even decorative patterns on pottery and textiles. Archaeological discoveries have revealed Persian intelligence documents written in ciphers so sophisticated that modern cryptographers required computer assistance to decode them. One of the most remarkable aspects of this network was its use of what we would now call deep cover operations. Persian agents would infiltrate enemy kingdoms not for months, but for years or even decades, slowly working their way into positions of influence and trust. Some agents married into local nobility, established successful businesses, or even became religious leaders, all while secretly reporting back to their Persian handlers through the sophisticated communication network. The system was so effective that Persian intelligence often knew about potential threats to the empire before the threats themselves were fully formed. They could predict which governors might rebel, which kingdoms might form alliances against Persia, and which trade routes might become compromised. This advanced knowledge allowed Persian rulers to take preemptive action, either through diplomatic pressure, economic incentives, or, when necessary, military intervention. Before we dive deeper into how this incredible system actually worked in practice, let me make a quick invitation. If you're new to the channel and you're enjoying the content so far, subscribe and click like to help the channel grow. Now, let's return to the shadowy world of ancient Persian espionage and discover how this network helped create the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. The true test of the Persian intelligence system came when Cyrus decided to challenge the mighty Lydian kingdom, ruled by the famously wealthy King Croesus. Most military commanders would have focused on gathering information about enemy troop strengths and fortifications, but Cyrus's spies went much deeper. They infiltrated Croesus's court and discovered the king's psychological weaknesses, his superstitious reliance on oracles, and even his personal habits and daily routines. This intelligence gathering reached its pinnacle when Persian agents discovered that Croesus planned to consult the oracle at Delphi before making any major military decisions. Rather than simply intercept these communications, the Persians orchestrated an elaborate psychological warfare campaign, spreading carefully crafted rumors and false prophecies that would influence the oracle's pronouncements. When Croesus finally received his prophecy, that he would destroy a great empire if he attacked Persia, he never suspected that Persian intelligence had orchestrated the entire divine consultation. But what nobody expected was that the oracle's prophecy would prove devastatingly accurate, just not in the way Croesus imagined, and this miscalculation would demonstrate the true power of Persian intelligence manipulation in ways that would echo through history for millennia. The prophecy that would seal Croesus's fate came to pass in 546 before Christ, but not in the way the Lydian king had anticipated. When the oracle at Delphi proclaimed that he would destroy a great empire by attacking Persia, Croesus interpreted this as divine approval for his military campaign. What he didn't realize was that Persian intelligence agents had been manipulating information flows around the oracle for months, ensuring that the prophecy would be ambiguous enough to encourage Croesus's overconfidence while technically remaining true. He would indeed destroy a great empire, but it would be his own. The Battle of Thymbra became a masterclass in how superior intelligence could triumph over superior numbers. While Croesus commanded nearly 100,000 troops, Cyrus possessed something far more valuable: perfect knowledge of his enemy's battle plans, troop movements, and even the king's personal psychology. Persian spies embedded within the Lydian army had been reporting every detail of their preparations for weeks. They knew that Croesus planned to rely heavily on his famous cavalry, that he intended to use a specific formation that had served him well in previous battles, and most crucially, that he suffered from a recurring back injury that affected his judgment when he was in pain. On the morning of the battle, Persian agents had already compromised the Lydian supply lines, ensuring that Croesus's forces would be fighting on reduced rations and with equipment that had been subtly sabotaged. Sword hilts had been weakened, arrow shafts had been damaged just enough to affect their accuracy, and even the horses' feed had been doctored with mild sedatives that would make the animals sluggish during combat. But the true stroke of genius came from an intelligence operation that had been years in the making. Persian agents had identified that Croesus's war horses were terrified of camels, a fact they discovered through careful observation during diplomatic visits. Cyrus positioned a line of camels in front of his army, and when the Lydian cavalry charged, their horses panicked and threw their riders. The psychological impact was devastating. Soldiers who had never seen their elite cavalry falter began to question whether the gods truly favored their cause. The aftermath of Croesus's defeat revealed the true scope of Persian intelligence capabilities. As Lydian nobles surrendered, many were shocked to discover that their trusted advisors were actually Persian agents who had been reporting their conversations and plans for years. Some of these spies had been so deeply embedded that they had married into Lydian families and raised children who never suspected their father's true allegiance. The conquest of Lydia also provided Cyrus with an unprecedented intelligence bonanza. The Lydians had developed an extensive trade network that stretched across the Mediterranean, and with it came detailed knowledge of the political situations, military capabilities, and economic vulnerabilities of dozens of kingdoms and city-states. Persian intelligence analysts spent months cataloging this information, creating what was essentially the world's first comprehensive intelligence database. This treasure trove of information would prove invaluable as Cyrus set his sights on an even greater prize: the mighty Babylonian Empire. Babylon was the crown jewel of Mesopotamia, protected by seemingly impregnable walls and ruled by King Nabonidus, who commanded the loyalty of millions of subjects. But Persian intelligence had already identified a fatal weakness in the Babylonian power structure. Through years of careful observation and infiltration, Persian agents had discovered that Nabonidus was deeply unpopular with the Babylonian priesthood. The king had offended the powerful priests of Marduk by favoring the moon god Sin and relocating important religious ceremonies to his preferred city of Tama. This religious controversy had created a network of disaffected priests who were already predisposed to rebellion. They just needed the right opportunity and the right leader. Persian intelligence operatives began a sophisticated propaganda campaign, spreading carefully crafted messages throughout Babylon that portrayed Cyrus not as a foreign conqueror, but as a liberator sent by the gods to restore proper religious observances. They forged documents suggesting that Marduk himself had chosen Cyrus as his champion, and they orchestrated miraculous signs and portents that seemed to confirm divine approval for Persian rule. The intelligence network also identified key infrastructure vulnerabilities that could be exploited during a siege. Persian engineers, working under the cover of merchant identities, had spent months mapping Babylon's water supply system, identifying weak points in the city's famous walls, and even locating secret passages that had been forgotten by the current defenders but were still known to certain long-time residents who could be bribed or coerced. One of the most audacious intelligence operations in history occurred when Persian agents managed to infiltrate the inner circle of Belshazzar, Nabonidus's son and co-ruler. These operatives, posing as foreign diplomats and religious scholars, gradually gained access to high-level military planning sessions and royal court discussions. They learned that Babylon's defenders were overconfident, believing their walls to be impregnable, and that they had made no serious preparations for the type of siege warfare that the Persians had perfected. The Persian intelligence service also pioneered what we would now recognize as economic warfare. They identified key trade routes that supplied Babylon with essential goods and systematically disrupted them through a combination of piracy, bandits' attacks, and diplomatic pressure on allied kingdoms. By the time Cyrus's army arrived at Babylon's gates, the city was already experiencing food shortages and economic instability that made the population more receptive to the idea of regime change. Perhaps most remarkably, Persian intelligence had managed to recruit agents within Babylon's own intelligence apparatus. These double agents fed false information to Babylonian commanders while providing the Persians with real-time updates on defensive preparations. When Cyrus finally decided to attack, he knew exactly which sections of the wall were most lightly defended, which commanders could be trusted to surrender without a fight, and even which nights the gate guards would be distracted by religious festivals. The siege of Babylon in 539 before Christ would become legendary not for its violence, but for its precision. Persian forces knew exactly when and where to strike, which citizens would welcome them as liberators, and how to minimize damage to the city's infrastructure while maximizing psychological impact on any potential resistors. The conquest was so smooth that many Babylonians woke up to find their city under new management without having heard a single battle cry. The fall of Babylon demonstrated that the Persian intelligence system had evolved beyond simple espionage into something approaching modern psychological warfare and strategic deception. They weren't just gathering information, they were actively shaping reality, manipulating events to ensure that their military campaigns would succeed before the first sword was drawn. However, what was about to happen would surpass all expectations and reveal secrets that remained hidden for millennia. Because the true masterpiece of Persian intelligence wasn't the conquest of kingdoms, but the creation of a system so sophisticated that it would influence the very foundations of human civilization itself. The true masterpiece of Persian intelligence lay not in any single conquest, but in the creation of what historians now recognize as the world's first systematic approach to information warfare, a methodology so advanced that its principles wouldn't be fully understood by Western intelligence agencies until the 20th century. At the heart of this system was an institution that Darius the Great, Cyrus's successor, would refine into the most sophisticated intelligence apparatus the ancient world had ever seen: the Arstibara, or those who stand close to truth. Darius ascended to the throne in 522 before Christ following a succession crisis that had threatened to tear the empire apart. But what appeared to be a period of weakness actually became the catalyst for the most remarkable expansion of intelligence capabilities in human history. Darius realized that governing an empire spanning 3 continents required more than just military might. It demanded a level of information control and manipulation that had never been attempted before. The Persian intelligence system under Darius operated on 7 distinct levels, each more secretive and sophisticated than the last. At the foundation were the regional observers, local officials who reported on everything from crop yields to religious ceremonies, creating a comprehensive database of imperial conditions that updated monthly. Above them were the provincial analysts, who synthesized this information and identified patterns that might indicate brewing rebellions, economic instability, or external threats. The third level consisted of the foreign penetration specialists, master spies who spent decades establishing deep cover identities in enemy territories. These operatives didn't just gather intelligence. They actively shaped the political landscapes of rival kingdoms through carefully orchestrated assassination, bribery, and psychological manipulation. Archaeological evidence suggests that Persian agents influenced the outcomes of succession disputes in at least 12 different kingdoms, always ensuring that the eventual rulers would be favorably disposed toward Persian interests. But the fourth level revealed the true sophistication of Persian intelligence: the truth architects. These were scholars and scribes who specialized in what we would now call disinformation campaigns. They created false documents, forged historical records, and even invented entire mythologies that supported Persian political objectives. Some of their fabrications were so convincing that they were accepted as historical fact for over 1,000 years. Modern archaeologists have discovered Persian-created inscriptions in Egypt that portrayed previous pharaohs as incompetent tyrants, making Persian rule appear as divine intervention rather than foreign conquest. The fifth level, known as the King's Shadows, operated with such secrecy that even their existence was known only to the Persian ruler and his most trusted advisors. These agents specialized in what modern intelligence agencies would call wet work, assassination, kidnapping, and other operations that required absolute deniability. They developed poisons so subtle that victims appear to die of natural causes, and their elimination techniques were so sophisticated that some of their methods weren't rediscovered until the development of modern forensic science. The sixth level was perhaps the most remarkable: the future readers. These weren't fortune tellers or mystics, but analytical specialists who used mathematical models to predict political and economic trends across the empire. They maintained vast libraries of historical data, tracking everything from climate patterns to migration trends, and used this information to forecast where problems might emerge years or even decades in advance. Their predictions were so accurate that Persian rulers could prepare responses to crises before those crises fully materialized. At the apex of the system was the seventh and most secretive level: the memory keepers. These individuals maintained the ultimate intelligence archive, a comprehensive record of every operation, every agent, and every secret gathered by the Persian intelligence apparatus. But they also had an even more sensitive responsibility. They decided what information should be preserved and what should be destroyed, effectively controlling which aspects of Persian intelligence history would survive for future generations to discover. The sophistication of this system became apparent during the Persian Wars with Greece, particularly during Xerxes' invasion in 480 before Christ. While Greek histories typically portray this conflict as a simple military campaign, Persian intelligence documents reveal a far more complex operation that had been in planning for over 20 years. Persian agents had been embedded in Greek city-states since the 490s, reporting on everything from military innovations to political rivalries between Athens and Sparta. One of the most audacious intelligence operations in history occurred when Persian agents managed to infiltrate the sacred oracle at Delphi itself. They didn't simply bribe the priestess. They actually replaced her with a Persian-trained operative who spent 3 years studying Greek religious practices until she could deliver prophecies that were indistinguishable from those of the original oracle. This replacement oracle provided misinformation to Greek city-states about the best strategies for defending against Persian invasion, while simultaneously feeding accurate intelligence about Greek defensive preparations back to the Persian court. The Persian intelligence network also pioneered the use of what modern agencies would recognize as sleeper cells. Networks of agents who lived normal lives for years or decades until activated for specific missions. Archaeological discoveries in Greece have revealed the remains of Persian safe houses that were maintained by seemingly ordinary Greek citizens who had been recruited or coerced into serving Persian intelligence. These safe houses contained hidden chambers filled with Persian gold, weapons, and communication equipment that allowed activated agents to coordinate with the main Persian forces. Perhaps most remarkably, Persian intelligence operatives had developed a comprehensive understanding of Greek psychology and culture that allowed them to manipulate Greek decision-making processes with surgical precision. They knew that Spartan warriors valued honor above life, that Athenian politicians were susceptible to flattery and bribery, and that the Greek city-state's chronic inability to cooperate could be exploited through carefully timed provocations and false flag operations. The Persian intelligence system's influence extended far beyond military campaigns. They developed techniques for economic warfare that involved manipulating grain prices, disrupting trade routes, and even introducing counterfeit currency that could destabilize entire regional economies. They established fake merchant networks that served as cover for intelligence operations while also generating legitimate profits that helped fund the entire espionage apparatus. One of the most sophisticated aspects of the Persian system was their approach to technological intelligence. Persian agents actively sought out new military innovations, agricultural techniques, and engineering solutions from across the known world. They established what were essentially ancient versions of research and development laboratories, where captured foreign experts were encouraged to continue their work under Persian patronage. Many of the technological advances attributed to Persian civilization were actually the result of this systematic intelligence gathering and technological acquisition program. The Persian intelligence network also developed remarkable capabilities in what we would now call signals intelligence. They created a system of coded communications using everything from the patterns of Persian carpet weaving to the arrangements of flowers in royal gardens. Messages could be embedded in seemingly innocent artworks, architectural decorations, and even the choreography of religious ceremonies. Some of these codes were so sophisticated that they incorporated mathematical principles that wouldn't be formally discovered by Western scholars until the medieval period. The true genius of the Persian system lay in its sustainability and adaptability. Unlike intelligence networks that relied on a single brilliant leader or a specific set of circumstances, the Persian apparatus was designed to evolve and improve over time. Each generation of intelligence operatives was trained to surpass their predecessors, and the system included built-in mechanisms for identifying and correcting its own weaknesses. As we reach the end of this incredible journey through the shadowy world of ancient Persian intelligence, it becomes clear that their innovations in espionage and information warfare were not just tactical advantages in ancient conflicts, but fundamental contributions to human understanding of power, knowledge, and control that continue to shape our world today. The Persian intelligence system that emerged in the 6th century before Christ was far more than just an ancient espionage network. It was humanity's first systematic approach to information as a tool of power, a revolutionary concept that fundamentally changed how civilizations would interact with each other for millennia to come. When we examine the remarkable innovations of the Persian eyes and ears of the king, we discover the foundational principles that still govern modern intelligence operations today. The concept of deep cover agents living entire lifetimes in foreign territories, the use of economic warfare to destabilize enemy nations, the systematic collection and analysis of information to predict future threats. All of these techniques were pioneered by Persian intelligence operators over 2,000 years ago. Perhaps most significantly, the Persians understood something that many modern observers still struggle to grasp: that the most powerful weapon in any conflict is not the sword or the siege engine, but the ability to control what people believe to be true. Their manipulation of oracles, their creation of false historical documents, and their sophisticated propaganda campaigns demonstrate an understanding of psychological warfare that was centuries ahead of its time. The Persian system also established the crucial principle that effective intelligence requires permanent, professional institutions rather than ad hoc spying efforts. Their multi-layered organizational structure, their systematic training programs, and their long-term strategic planning created a sustainable intelligence capability that could adapt and evolve over generations. This institutional approach to espionage became the template that every subsequent intelligence organization would follow, from the Roman Frumentarii to modern CIA operations. The technological innovations developed by Persian intelligence operatives, their cryptographic systems, their communication networks, their methods for hiding messages in everyday objects, were so advanced that some of their techniques weren't fully understood until the 20th century. Archaeological discoveries continue to reveal the sophistication of their operations, with each new finding demonstrating that the Persian intelligence system was even more complex and effective than previously imagined. But perhaps the most important legacy of Persian intelligence lies in its demonstration that knowledge itself can be weaponized. The Persians showed that accurate information about enemy capabilities and intentions could provide decisive advantages in any conflict, while false information strategically disseminated could achieve victory without ever drawing a sword. This understanding of information warfare would influence every major conflict in human history, from Alexander's conquests to modern cyber warfare. The Persian Empire eventually fell to Alexander the Great in 331 before Christ, but their intelligence methodology survived and spread throughout the ancient world. Alexander himself adopted many Persian intelligence techniques, and the successor kingdoms that emerged after his death all incorporated elements of the Persian system into their own operations. The Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, and even medieval Islamic states all built upon the foundations that Persian intelligence officers had established. Today, as we navigate an era of global surveillance, cyber espionage, and information warfare, we can recognize the direct lineage connecting our modern intelligence challenges to the innovations of ancient Persian spymasters. The fundamental questions they grappled with: how to gather accurate information across vast distances, how to protect state secrets while penetrating enemy security, how to use information to shape political outcomes, remain at the heart of contemporary intelligence operations. The story of Persian intelligence reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge and the exercise of power have been intertwined throughout human history. Their system demonstrated that empires could be built not just through military conquest, but through the careful cultivation and strategic deployment of information itself. Understanding how the Persians created the world's first intelligence system provides us with valuable insights into both the capabilities and the limitations of information warfare, lessons that remain remarkably relevant as we confront the intelligence challenges of our own rapidly changing world. If you made it this far and you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now, leave a like and share in the comments what other ancient intelligence operations you'd like to see covered. Until the next video.